Okay, so I have looked over these earlier, and I know there is a lot of controversy on Twitter. I'm sure there's a lot of controversy on this update on Twitter and YouTube, and there's tons of videos made on it already, and I've already been asked by several people what my thoughts are on it, so I'm just making this video to say my thoughts so I can refer people to this video so I don't have to repeat myself 30 million times, but also so my YouTube audience can have some, to look at, and if they only watch me on YouTube, then they have that. Now, the biggest feature is probably the slugging and anti-tunneling. So if a survivor is left on the ground for a total of 90 seconds during a match, they gain the ability to pick themselves up after fully recovering. They also are able to move while crawling, so they have base kit tenacity. It won't affect any of the perks like exponential and unbreakable, they'll still function as normal. But a dev did clarify that the timer doesn't reset. So if you've been slugged on the ground for 90 seconds total, and then you get picked up, and then you go down again, you'll be able to pick yourself up. So if you've been slugged for 90 seconds, you get infinite unbreakable. It's not 90 seconds and then you get down and then another 90 seconds and then you get down. It's only 90 seconds and it accumulates over time. So it's infinite unbreakable basically. I think it's already strong enough with the timer being thought to have reset every time because it's free unbreakable. So this might be something that gets changed. I feel like being able to pick yourself up after 90 seconds is a good change. I don't really like the crawling while recovering being base kit because that's going to make killers like twins incredibly difficult to find the people you have downed. Like, it seems just like it'll be really hard to find people that you've downed because you have to switch off of Victor and then go back to people. And they could have crawled like really far away. So I feel like this is like an indirect nerf to twins and killers like Oni and twins, basically. So I guess it's not that bad, but maybe have the timer reset and then each time you're downed, the timer decreases. So like the first time you pick yourself up, it's 90 seconds, and then the second time it's 60 seconds, and then the third time it's 30 seconds, and then there's no timer after that. Because then it's very clear that the killer is only trying to slug. And if this is an issue, the bleed out timer becomes an issue, then extend the bleed out timer. The bleed out timer is 4 minutes. You could extend it to be like for 6 minutes, and the abandon option exists now, so it's not like the whole reason the bleed out timer was added is so you couldn't just get slugged on the ground infinitely, right? So the bleed out timer exists so that doesn't happen. But with the abandon option, you don't really have to worry about them waiting 6 minutes. You can just abandon, keep all your stuff. So extending the bleed out timer now doesn't negatively impact the survivors anymore because the abandon feature exists now. So I kind of outs on it, but yeah, it is. You can pick yourself up and you crawl while recovering. The tunneling reduction update. This is probably the most insane part of it all because killers and killer streamers alike for years have been saying if you don't want killers to tunnel because it's the most effective strategy for killer because you reduce the amount of survivors in the match, so it's a 3v1, giving yourself a further advantage instead of it being a 4v1. You have to give incentive not to tunnel. And they finally did that here. They gave a decentivization base kit for tunneling, and they gave you an incentive for tunneling. Now, some of the changes at the end I don't like too much, but I'll just go down the list. Basically, when a survivor is hooked, their hook status is hidden from the killer. When they're unhooked, there is no notification and their hook status isn't revealed immediately. So the killer doesn't know when you get unhooked. There won't be a notification right away or at all, it looks like. And you don't get to see on the HUD when they get unhooked right away either. So you can unhook someone kind of secretively, and then you have time to run away and hide and then heal that way. This is disabled once all the generators are completed. I saw someone complaining on Twitter saying, stop making these features disabled during endgame. It's not fair for survivors. And I was like, oh my god, this isn't enough for you yet? It's not enough for you survivors yet? But anyways, unhooked survivors gain the following effect for limited time: Haste, Durance, and Elusive, which is a new status effect, which if you scroll down here, basically a new status effect that silences your grunts of pain, suppresses the survivor aura and killer instinct, it hides your pools of blood and scratch marks, and it also gives you no collision, so killers cannot body block you. So you go right through killers and other teammates. You have no scratch mark, pools of blood, you make no sound, no aura, no killer instinct. It makes you completely elusive, which is cool. It's like for survivors. I like this change. I think that's a good change. Now, they also elusive apparently disables, however, during endgame, so you still keep haste and endurance. They added a unique effect to the killer hook state UI that indicates the last survivor they have hooked. So this is the incentive not to tunnel now, right? It lets you know the last survivor you hooked. So if you hooked a Fang last, Fang's icon will appear, so you see that you hooked her last. Now, after completing a unique hook, the same survivor is not hooked consecutively, so if you hooked Fang and then you hook a Norella afterwards, killers get the following benefits: bonus damage for the next generator they kick, temporary haste status effect, temporarily reveals survivors, so base kit, barbecue, and chili, that have less or equal hook states to the hook survivor. So if you hook someone for the first time, all other survivors that haven't been hooked or have been hooked once will be revealed. And if you hook someone who's now second hook, all survivors will be revealed. So if they've been hooked twice, hook once, or not at all. So base kit, barbecue, and chili, they even say it right here in the patch notes. These effects are slightly lessened. Oh, this is the other huge change. These effects are slightly lessened for Blight, Dark Lord, Ghoul, Hillbilly, and Nurse, which is an insane thing for them to put in patch notes, because that means the devs are actively looking at tier lists of what people consider to be the strongest killers in the game, or the top 5 best killers in the game, and they are starting to balance around the killers that are too strong. By them doing this, it opens the door up for so many more balancing changes that can help this game, because instead of making changes that nerf the big killers, there was always the downside that if you nerf Blight by nerfing his base kit stuff, it would also nerf Trapper and Myers and Ghostface, like the weaker killers in the game. But if they separate it so it affects different strength killers separately, then you don't have to worry about this, and you can actually put more balancing decisions into the game without having to worry if you nerf Blight, it also nerfs Trapper, because Trapper doesn't need nerfs, Blight needs nerfs. So them doing this means it opens up the possibility for future changes where they can actually balance around the strength of a specific killer rather than all killers in general, which is a good change. And most, like, if you look at this, everyone says Blight, Nurse, 2 S tier killers. Some people put Hillbilly there, and then usually 4th and 5th slot is Dracula and Kaneki, or the Ghoul and the Dark Lord. So these are the top 5 killers on most people's tier lists. Probably would be in my own tier list. That's how I'd rank them. So it's cool that they're balancing around them as well. These effects are disabled once all generators are completed. But basically, if you don't tunnel and you hook someone unique, you get extra gen regression, haste, and barbecue and chili for free. But apparently not as much for the top 5 killers. They also added a new effect that disincentivizes tunneling. This is where things become a little too much. I think so far, this change, the elusive for survivor, and this change for killer is great. You incentivize a killer not to do it. And I do think there needs to be an incentive not to tunnel, because if the killer tunnels and then tries to get extra value out of this by single hooking the 3 remaining survivors to get the extra regression and haste and aura reading, then it could be too strong. So there needs to be some downside to the killer does tunnel. However, one of these is a little too much. If a survivor dies before 6 total hook states, which is half the hooks you need to kill survivors, by the way, which I feel like is kind of a lot. I feel like making it 4 or 5 would be fine. 6 is a little too much. All remaining survivors gain a repair speed bonus for the rest of the trial. So survivors get to do gens faster for the rest of the match, the remaining 3. I think that's a good change if it's like 4 or 5 hooks. 6 is half of your hooks, so you could have 2 people dead hook, and then you hook one, and then that person dies. Wait, it says survivor dies before 6 total hooks. So maybe it is 5 then, if they die on the 5th hook, because it says before 6. So maybe it is 5. So maybe this mechanic's fine then. So you have 1 hook on someone else. I was thinking if it was like that, then it would have 2 people dead hook. Wait, no, it would be. Because 2 people dead hook means 4 hook stages, and then you hook someone, and that would be your 5th hook, and someone died. That would be before 6 total hook stages. So even if you weren't tunneling someone and you had 2 people dead hook, just because you kill one of the dead hook people, they get to do gens faster now? I don't think that's good. I feel like it should be 4. 4 is probably the sweet spot. Because if you have 2 people dead hook, you shouldn't get punished for killing one of them, because you've actively tried killing 2 separate people just because those 2 people were the ones that kept showing up, or you kept finding on gens or whatever out of pure chance. You shouldn't get punished for that as killer, because you go for the person that is just actively getting in your way. Now, this change, though, if the survivor that was last hooked is sacrificed or killed, generators cannot be regressed or blocked. This is a little insane, because killer is not being able to kick or regress gens in any way or block them with any perks sounds like a horrible nerf, because it doesn't even say before 6 hook stages. It just says in general, if the survivor that was last hooked gets sacrificed or killed, generators cannot be regressed or blocked for the rest of the game. That seems a little crazy. They also added the option to enable or disable these in custom games, because I'm sure they are aware that the comp community doesn't like this balancing decisions. Makes the game more casual, and they want to maintain their idea that competitive DBD can still exist, I guess, especially since they're officially backing DBD League now. So this is nice for the competitive community, because they don't have to deal with these features that would make it really unfair in comp, because tunneling is literally in every comp game you'll ever watch. So this would be too much of a benefit for the really good survivors, and it will be too much of a benefit for the really good survivors in public lobbies, because you do not have to be a good survivor to take advantage of the killer not being able to regress or block gens or the repair speed bonus. These compared together, you have no worry about the gen regressing, no worry about it blocking, and you have no worry because you do the gen faster with a repair speed bonus. So it's just like gonna be insane. I feel like this is okay if they make it 4 and then just remove this. This is not good. I don't think this is a good addition to the game. Everything else above this is great, give or take what I said about the slugging stuff, but this needs to be reduced down to before 5 instead of before 6, which means it would be 4, and then this shouldn't exist. They also are adding lore back, because the past few tomes haven't had lore, so that's coming in. A rework to Myers. Basically, they're adding modes for him, so you can choose when to be in tier 1 and be undetectable. In tier 2, you have a 24-meter tear radius, and you have the increased vault speed, which he already had in tier 2. However, you also get bonus to lunge range and break speed. He never had break speed, so you could never break pallets faster. So that's a new thing that he has. And stun recovery is also new. So the break speed, the lunge, the stun recovery are all new to tier 2. He did have an increased lunge, but it was only in tier 3. And you can only stock survivors in tier 1. They also made it so if you want to activate tier 3, you can have it fully charged and then activate it. There's no more having to 99 it. Now, in tier 3, he has a 40-meter tear radius and increased vault speed, and he unlocks a dash ability, which is kind of Giga Lunge. It's not really different from current Myers. People are like, they're calling it another dash slop killer, but Myers already kind of, in his big lunge can just be considered a dash, so it's not really different for what Myers already did. Survivors are no longer insta-downable, so you can only insta-down them with this lunge. That is the downside. So if you M1 them, they will not go down because they're not exposed anymore. So you're going to have to use this ability. But this ability can also break pallets now. So Myers shreds pallets like Demo and Blight, which is an interesting thing. But if you want to play the original Myers, there is an add-on they specifically said that reverts him to OG Myers if you don't like this new Myers. But it's a purple add-on from what I think Lock of Hair is purple. So I don't know why you would lock that behind a purple add-on if that should be a brown add-on. Because if people want to actually play him, they shouldn't be locked behind a really high tier add-on. Like they also adjusted the mechanics of stocking, so survivors no longer have limited stock per survivor. You just can stock anyone infinitely, but they reduced the range to it and the distance modifier. So that rework he got a while back, they just completely removed it, basically. Moving while stocked has increased movement speed, but incurs a reduced stock rate, and they reworked his add-ons. I think it'll be cool to try out. I don't think he's going to become dash slop. He already had a lunge. I think I'm going to enjoy being able to switch between tier 1, 2, and 3, and also being able to get the break speed and stun recovery with that extra lunge in tier 2. So it'll make him like a really good chase killer in tier 2 and a really good insta-down permanent coup user in tier 3. Clown, they increased the activation time of the Afterpiece Antidote. Like I was saying, Clown is overtuned. Realistically, they only gave him 2% haste from the update he received, and 2% haste isn't making that much of a difference in this scenario. It was the activation speed of the yellow bottles, so they're increasing the activation time of the yellow bottles, which is good. I think it was 2 seconds before, and then they buffed it down to 1 second, so maybe 1.5 seconds will be the sweet spot, something like that. We don't know the numbers until Tuesday when the actual PTB comes out. And they also increase how long the Afterpiece Tonic's hindered effect lingers after leaving smoke. So the reason yellow bottles have been overtaking the game is they heavily nerfed pink bottles, and this was one of the nerfs. They made it so when you leave the pink bottle, it only lingers the hindered for 1 second when before it was 2 seconds. So I'm hoping they increase this back to lingering for 2 seconds. So that way the slow will linger for 2 seconds and people will actually be wanting to use purple bottles again. Because purple bottles are kind of useless how they are in the current state. So they need to make purple bottles good again while also making yellow bottles not too good, but they also want to make sure that the yellow bottles are still good to be used alongside the purple bottles. You just need to make them equal strength, so that way people use them equally. Before they weren't. Unknown, for those of you who know my channel, I'm a P100 Unknown. I love Unknown. I am super excited to see these changes. They increase the additional time added to weaken when injured by a UVX projectile, so if you get hit, it adds another few. Usually it added 6 seconds, I believe, so I don't know what the numbers are going to be, but I can assume like 8, so increase it by 2 seconds. They also increased the movement speed recovery after teleporting, so they made more blurry photo base kit. And they made it so he can look straight up, so he can orbital. And they said specifically they are learning from how they did Springtrap, how people really liked being able to orbital with Springtrap. And they saw people begging to be able to do that with Unknown too. So they're letting Unknown orbital, because before he couldn't look up all the way, but now he can. So they increased his vertical range to let him orbital. And they also adjusted several add-ons. He has so many add-ons that are absolutely useless. And so I'm hoping they don't just adjust the numbers. I'm hoping they rework some of them. Because there's one, it's like a masker. So you disable one of his clones, you get blinded for 60 seconds. Like, that just needs to be reworked. It's a purple add-on. That, if you increase that to 75 seconds or 90 seconds, it's not going to be good. Because then when the survivor sees that you have it, they're just not going to touch a clone for the rest of the game because they don't want to be blinded for 90 seconds. And even if they are blinded for 90 seconds, Swift just counters that. You can just make callouts. Like, you don't really need blindness. So I'm hoping they rework the add-ons instead of just adjusting the numbers. And kind of what I wanted to see was increase the base kit timer to weakened by 2 seconds. Right now it's 10 seconds. I would like to see it be 12 seconds. Maybe I'll make a post on that and suggestions when the PTB goes live. If they're actually thinking about doing changes to Unknown, I have a few suggestions my own. And this was one of them, this first one. But I just want the base kit weakened timer to be 12 seconds. Now, Dark Lord. Hold on. My headset died because I wasn't talking. Dark Lord actually got buffed with this. They reduced the Hellfire cooldown and increased his range by 1, but they reduced his zoning to compensate. So he moves slower while holding Hellfire, and after he casts it, he gets slowed down a lot more, which is good because he could move really fast while holding it out, so he could zone you really easily, and even if he missed, he was still right behind you. So this will feel good for the Dark Lord, and it will feel good for survivors. They increased the pounce attack charge time, so it takes longer to charge the Wolf Pounce, because a while back they buffed it, and it kind of went over buff because Wolf Form is kind of here. Wolf Form was outclassing some other dash killers, so they also increased the Scent Orb spawn time, which is good. And Bat Form, they buffed by increasing movement friction to make flying easier to control, because he would kind of off of a lot of stuff, so it was kind of hard to move around in Bat Form sometimes. And they adjusted his add-ons. I'm curious to see if they adjusted some of his good add-ons, if they just adjusted like the Sunglasses add-on that increases total Hellfire pillars by 1, since it's being added base kit. Maybe they wanted to rework that add-on. But maybe they'll adjust other add-ons that are unrelated to all these changes. Who knows? Ghoul. Summary. They removed Kidnap Tech. Hallelujah. There was nothing else wrong with Ghoul. I think that's a good change. Oni. They acknowledged that the slugging update will nerf Oni, so they made it so if he hooks a survivor, it spawns more blood orbs, so you can get your power back easier. They didn't acknowledge, though, is twins, who are going to be cucked by this update way worse than Oni is, because it's going to be hard to find the people you downed because they're going to crawl away while recovering. Various perks are being updated. I'm assuming these are just related to anti-tunnel. Yeah, that's specifically relating to slugging and tunneling perks. So we'll see what that is. We won't see until Tuesday when the PTB comes out. They reveal all the numbers on the changes, the specific add-ons that get changed, and the specific perks and what gets changed about those perks. But that's basically all that's in this PTB. It's a very big one. I think the slugging and tunneling is going to be the most controversial changes. The only thing I would like to see is the thing I said about slugging, where every time you get picked up, it reduces the reset timer by 30 seconds. So the second time you pick yourself up, it's 60 seconds and then 30 seconds, and then you get infinite unbreakable. If the killer is doing it consistently, and if it's a one-off thing, they shouldn't be punished for the rest of the match by giving survivors infinite unbreakable. And also, if you need to increase the bleed out timer to 6 minutes instead of 4, and if that is an issue for survivors, the abandon feature is always there because you don't have to worry, you don't have to wait out 6 minutes anymore. Tunneling, like I said, everything here is good except for this should be 4 hooks and this should not exist at all. Not being able to kick or block gens is just too big of a downside for killers. Like, it's too much. Little overkill. But everything else, they kind of nailed it. The only post I'm probably going to make, because I know there's going to be a million on the tunneling and slugging, is I'm just going to make a post advertising for some unknown tweaks that I'd like to see as a P100 unknown player. Okay. Bye-bye. Done yapping.